So we're seeing a lot of retaliation on people that aren't following the Bruen decision right now, and that's because when the Supreme Court says something, that is the law of the land. Like it or not, that is the law of the land. That's just the way it is. And there are certain factions that believe that no, that's not the law of the land, we can do what we want. So there's two major things that just happened very recently. Now the source for the story came from John Crump. Definitely subscribe to him. Does a massive amount of good in the 2A community. Show him your support. The first one, as soon as the Bruen decision happened, they had an emergency meeting in New York and they came up with some new law that was even worse than the old one, basically just to slap the Bruen decision in the face.
Since Heller versus McDonald, where they analyze the Second Amendment, where it combines history, we have a history, yes we do, but also means and scrutiny. Does the means of the restriction justify the infringement? We are creating a definitive list of sensitive locations where individuals will not be able to carry firearms.
The governor says the new law will severely limit the places New Yorkers can carry weapons.
Now, as you know, as things go through the court systems, it can take years. It's been, what, like 4 years, and the bump stock case has still not had a final ruling, still not had its day in court. Like I said, it can take a long time, and a lot of politicians know this, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll either put out a law, and then when it gets up to the Supreme Court, they'll remove the law, change the law, and then put out almost the exact same thing, but now it's different, so now it needs to climb through the court system again. New York does this constantly. Like, this is a thing. Yes, there's laws that stop them from doing that, however, they repeatedly do it. I don't know why they haven't been sued for that, but they haven't. Anyway, so their new CCW plan is going to kick it into effect September 1st. Well, the GOA sued them, and what exactly has the judge done? First, they asked for an extension on the deadline of when they can reply to the GOA's motion. I'm not a court expert. I'm just giving it to you in layman's terms. Basically, the GOA files a complaint, and they have a period of time to reply to that complaint. They asked for an extension. It got denied. Not only did it get denied, which I'll put the paragraphs right here on what the judge actually said, he set a deadline for August 15th, 2022. That is, like, ridiculously unheard of. That just doesn't happen. Like I said, normally when something goes through the court systems, it takes years to get a decision. So he sets a deadline, which if you're seeing this video when it first drops, August 15th is just right down the road. For them to reply to their complaint, and then another deadline for the reply to that complaint of August 22nd. He said, there will be, or you will be in court sometime in between August 23rd and August 26th. He gave them a 3-day window where they can pick exactly when they're going to be in court. Because remember, usually it gets delayed, extensions, delayed. 5-10 years down the road, finally we have some sort of progress and we have a decision. This is happening in like months. You will be in court somewhere between August 23rd and August 26th, and I will give a decision before this new law takes effect as of September 1st. I don't know about you, but to me it already kind of sounds like what his decision is going to be. Besides, these points they're bringing up have already been hashed out in the Bruen decision. There's already been a decision on the points they're trying to bring up to argue that their new CCW law is constitutional. And we all know it's not. Because you can't tax a right, you can't tell somebody they can't have a right. Alright, so the next one we're looking at here. The LAPD stops enforcing the magazine ban. They decided to do this because of the Bruen decision. And California is still trying to push a magazine ban, but the Bruen decision makes the magazine ban unconstitutional. Yes, it was always unconstitutional, but the Bruen decision reaffirmed it. Yes, it's been reaffirmed across so many other Supreme Court decisions, but they always put a little clause in there, like, oh, this doesn't affect guns, or something like that. There's always a little clause, except for the Bruen decision. That's why it's such a big deal. So how did we get to this point? How did we get to a point, the tipping point, because it was always more and more gun control, and then all of a sudden, just like the snap of a twig, all of a sudden it's starting to wind back. Well, that's because gun control no longer has the court of public opinion. That ship sailed with the riots and the whole quote lockdowns. Like that ship's gone. How did that happen? Well, a lot of it came to be because people would be on the news watching this scary virus and they're seeing these riots happen and families are being drug out of their cars and buildings are being torched and houses, and there could be a family in that house, and they're like, man, what if that was my family being drugged out of the car? Like, I'm not going to defend them all. I'm not going to defend 15 people away or fend 15 people away with my freaking kitchen knife. You know, I would like to have a firearm. So these people that were always in the camp of, I don't purchase guns, they're dangerous, they're scary, they're not for me. They've always got their news from like CNN that says, hey, we're putting all these gun regulations in place. This way those dirty criminals over there have a really hard time getting them, and or they can't get them. Well, they walked into a gun shop, first time ever, and they found out every single thing they've been told about firearms. Everything they've been told about the firearm buying process has all been a big, giant, fat lie. Not only did they learn that, they learned that that camp of people, those dirty criminals, that encompasses them. They go in there and buy a gun. At this time I had worked at a gun shop, and it was an SOT gun shop. They found out they can't have certain items. And then the items they could have, they found out they were far more expensive than what they were told. And then they go to buy it, and they got this paperwork. It's complicated. It asks a whole bunch of stuff. There's a background check. Typically, if you're a first-time buyer, you get delayed. So there was a delay. Plus, if there's states that have additional delays on top of that, so they're waiting weeks when this is happening today, possibly in the town right next to theirs or in the town they live in. And then it was just a mind blow. They're like, I've always been told that people can just walk in and buy guns everywhere. How come I can't? I never broke a law. My parents never broke a law. My kids never broke a law. What's going on? And that just opened so many people's eyes. Let's take a look at exactly how many eyes were opened on this. So the 3 years prior, because we heard about the 19, and obviously 2019, that's where it gets its name. You know, C19, that 2019. 2016, 27 million background checks were done. 2017, 25 million background checks were done. 2018, 26 million background checks were done. That's an average of 26 million background checks done every year. That's just your normal gun enthusiast, stuff like that, doing transfers from person to person, about 26 million a year. Now, let's include 2019. There's an extra 2 million background checks. Not that big of an influx, but you know, that problem was all overseas. That didn't really affect us. Well, then 2020 and 2021 happened, and it did affect us, and that's when the riots happened. So in 2020, there's 13 million background checks done on top of average. In 2021, 12 million background checks done on top of average, giving us a total of 27 brand new firearms owners. That is a lot. They moved like locusts, just wiping out gun shops, taking all their inventory. Like, that's how crazy things got back then. And if there would have been more inventory, this number would have been exponentially higher. So now you got those people that just simply weren't able to get one. They couldn't. No matter where they went, everyone was out of stock. They could not get one. So that's a bunch of people that are now like, hey, why do we have these regulations? This is ridiculous. And then the 27 million people that did get them were like, your regulations aren't working. They're affecting me, not the criminals over there. And now I understand there is no regulation you can put on the books that would affect the criminals over there because they don't care. That's what makes them a criminal, is because they break laws. So all those regulations that I was for, I was regulating myself. That's all I was doing. I was regulating myself. I am no longer for it. Gun control is no longer a winnable political issue. Politicians used to be able to win by talking about how tough they were going to be on gun control. That ship's gone. You can't win on that anymore. That's like how the conservatives had a rude awakening when they found out that weed was no longer a winnable issue. If you started talking about wanting to ban it and how tough you were going to be on it, you didn't get voted in. And now the same thing happened with gun control, and we're just seeing the trickle-down effect. And the ATF's really in a pinch here, Because according to the Bruin decision, they can't prosecute an NFA case.
You know, the Supreme Court has laid down, that's the rule now. You know, the Constitution has to be interpreted, the Second Amendment in particular, based on what the framers would have thought about this regulation. And at least according to Justice Thomas, the answer almost always is the framers would have thought that the individual had the right and the state didn't have the right to regulate.
And all the people that ignore the Bruin decision get smacked down, and that's the way it's been going. What they need to do is find a case where this is a clear villain. Like he had drugs, dead bodies, machine guns, and then try to move that case up to the Supreme Court, and hopefully they can win. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to be out of a job, and they're going to have to change their name to AWT for alcohol, weed, and tobacco. Or you could go ATW, or maybe ATM. ATM kind of has a ring to it. Yeah, you get it confused with the machine, but, you know, ATM, alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Who knows? Who knows what they'll do? The point is, they have so many sketchy cases on the books right now where they're like an interpretation of an interpretation of an interpretation of an interpretation. If that bad boy makes it up to the Supreme Court, you never know what courts are going to do, but it's not looking good. That's all I got to say about that. Anyway, appreciate you guys checking in and watching my videos. If you'd like to help support the channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. And you could go to the merch shelf right below this video and pick out some new school clothes for your children. Got that merch line going. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.